Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time zone it is with you in the world, it is your Lore Saviour for another Chicago by Night 5th Edition Campaign Diary Recap thing. Now, a lot happened in the last session, and a lot of emotional damage was caused to pretty much all the players, well, especially two of them, as a lot of spicy drama unfolded. Now, it was a couple of weeks ago when I actually did this session, so we're going to be referring a bit to some notes of mine. So if you see weird edits or me just looking over at my phone every so often, then you know why. So, to start things off, it was a brand new night, and the players met up at the Abyss, the Lasombra Players Club. Now, in said club, they all had a little bit of a chat about the things that have happened over the last couple of nights. Go and check the previous recap diaries to find out what they are. You can see the playlist at the end of the video, or just check out where they are on my channel. Because I'm not going to go through all of them. What I will say is that what wasn't discussed was the Chronicle Tenant stuff that I thought was going to be happening. And I have some ideas of how to go about that. If there's something that the players aren't gonna naturally progress it themselves. Otherwise, you just check around for the spoiler bit is what I'm trying to say. So that wasn't discussed, and neither was the Lasombra's findings of the potential guru that was bin diving and with a gun and the little special runes thing. But I'm sure that will pop up at due course. So the three of them were at the Abyss, and the first thing they discussed in a little bit of detail was the email, which is all very, very exciting for me. And, just seeing them all get worried and tense up about, A, the situation of the SI and Hunters taking over the police department of Chicago, and also how one of these bodies have disappeared. And if you want to know what I did with that, go and check out the previous episode, provided you're not one of my players and you haven't encountered that yet. Otherwise, fuck off. But outside of that, there was a bit of conversation about the Lasombra getting stalked and thinking, was it to do with the SI following me? Was it to do with this? Is it that? And just lovely just seeing all that come together. They talked a bit more about the Malkavian players, Ronde's views with the individual who's now deceased. And there was also the conversation with the Brujah player, who managed to make some progress about finding their sire, because if you remember, in the previous episode, in the first visit to Critias's Vampire Sunday School, as it's now so been dubbed by my players, they found an individual by the name of Cassidy, an Anarchs, who claimed to know his sire, he being the Brujah player. And the other two, were quite suspicious of this already, because they were both, with some checks, were aware of the Tzimisce being related to the Sabbat. But in any case, they were aware that the Tzimisce were relatively new to the Anarchs. And then there was a big old discussion about Brujah players, sort of, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, the alignment with, Brujah players' alignment with the Anarchs, being a sympathizer with them. And both Lasombra and Malkavian player were not too happy about this. They were supportive, I guess, in some degree, but they wouldn't help them out too much with that, because, Malkavian player was quite happy within the Camarilla, at least from the protection standpoint, and obviously the Lasombra player wasn't too happy about, getting to involve that, because they spent a very long time trying to get into the Camarilla. Now they're in, they're not going to try and throw that all away. Which, I loved the bit of drama that was there. Finally, for a little bit, a bit of the heat was on the Brujah player for some of these controversial decisions. All of them had their fair amount of shit thrown at them. There was Malkavian player in the previous session, there's the Lasombra player through most of our sessions so far, and now Brujah player gets a little bit of the heat. And it will be interesting to see how things unfold, especially with the things that I have planned, some of which I've discussed in spoiler sessions, and just other general interactions, just to see what's going to happen with them next. And I'm quite curious to see how the other two players are going to react to the Anarchs. Are they going to be a bit more sympathetic towards them, as the Brujah player, I guess, will open up about things, so to speak? Or will they resent them a bit more? And I wonder if this will also, in turn, reflect their feeling towards the Brujah players. It's just lovely bits of, they're all trying to get along to the best of their abilities, but they've got so many different varieties of jank going on that you can never be too sure how one truly feels about the other. So as this discussion unfolded and like other bits of emotional drama and whatnot happened, I then suddenly let the bombshell drop to the Malkavian player exactly the way that I wanted to, that they felt the blood bond snap from their sire, and it had exactly the intention that I had. Everybody's face was just like, I think even Lasombra player just went, oh no, that can't be good. Not out of character, obviously, because they didn't know this until much later into the session. And then the rest of the session from there onwards kind of geared very hard towards the Malkavian player, because the Malkavian player, the snapping of one's blood bond often means that someone somewhere somehow has died, and this really worried Malkavian player. And they kind of worked out, oh, that might be why they haven't been responding to the calls, not because they're being stroppy or whatever, because we've kind of established that the Malkavian sire is a bit of a diva. And Malkavian player just decided in that instant they had to go. They had to go and do this by themselves. Which, at first, I found a bit odd, given that, more recent conversations about them all trying to work together. And this is where I feel some of that Chronicle Tenant stuff will happen, which I will touch upon. But, Malkavian's mess, Malkavian goes off and does this thing. I had to then make a frenzy check here because I feel this was a very strong emotional reaction to trigger such a frenzy, because remember, frenzy isn't just caused by, in V5 terms, the hunger reaching 5 to its apex. It can also be caused by emotion reactions as well, and it's a very strong reaction here, so to speak. Blood bond or not, those emotions are very strong, and they failed, and I allowed, because of the difficulty that's set and how little successes that they got, I allowed the Malkavian player to spend a point of willpower to be able to get through the club in one piece, in the way that I described it. I did it in such a way that I think any autistic person would understand, particularly us four, because as I said before, we're all autistic. It's like a super over-the-top sensory overload sort of thing. You don't want to be touched. Everything, clothes feel uncomfortable. You feel your muscles and whatnot tensing up. You just want to scream and shout. You don't want anybody to touch you, that sort of thing. Just things like that. That kind of gave the impression that, barely trying to keep it all together. But the moment that the Malkavian player had left the club, they went in a terror frenzy and just sort of run off into the wild somewhere. And because it was a terror frenzy, they fled to somewhere that they felt was safe. And when they came to, that was sort of at an alleyway sort of thing in the middle of nowhere, so where they're able to get in the fetal position and calm down sort of thing. I didn't focus too much on it. There wasn't too much of a consequence presently to such a frenzy, because I just wanted it to focus on what the player felt about the sire and how they reacted, rather than dealing with the consequences there and then about the frenzy, because it was more important to focus on the narrative of how that character was feeling, rather than deal with the masquerade element of it straight away. And as I've obviously been saying through this, I do have plans about how this is going to slap them all in the face later, but you can check that out in the spoiler section. So when they came through, they got a cab, and they got a cab to the sire's apartment, which we both worked together to work out what that looked like. Very bare, minimalist sort of thing. And they find out when they get into the apartment, the sire wasn't there. There was an illustration that they found, a pencil sketch sort of thing, of this cavern dreamscape that the Malkavian player had recently. And also scattered across various bits of papers, you put them all together and it makes this weird rune circle. The Malkavian player obviously had no idea what to make of any of this. They found the sire's phone, it had all the text messages and the missed call from the Brujah player, which came up as an unknown number. And it was all very tense, emotionally speaking. It was just interesting just seeing the Malkavian player, who, being quite the eclectic character usually, just sort of cave in on themselves emotionally, and I was just keeping a watch wide to make sure that I wasn't overdoing it, but everyone seemed to really enjoying it, which is good, very good, because again, I don't want to trigger or traumatize my players, not in a bad way anyway. No, I don't want to traumatize anybody at all, because that would imply there's a lack of consent. So I want them to feel those more horrific and personal feelings, but I don't want I don't want to traumatize them. That's just not on. So what Malkavian player did is that they had run out of options, so they were resorted to giving their coterie mates a little ring, And that's where we transitioned back to the Abyss, where I asked the two Lasombra player, so the Lasombra player and the Brujah player, how they felt about all of this. And they kind of felt, out of sorts, that they wanted to help, but they kind of felt, shut out sort of thing. Like, wanting the Malkavian player to, like, let them in and help them out. Which, again, this whole teamwork element, I feel as though I'm going to come in somehow as a Chronicle tenant. But at the same time, it kind of makes sense that they react this way, because these are very personal things. You don't want to let these people into such personal things to be judged and whatever. And at the same time, this was a coterie that was kind of slapped together very peculiarly. Brujah player, Malkavian player was put together, by Kevin Jackson to bring the Lasombra into the city. And the Lasombra just kind of forced them their way into it, and they're kind of building that emotion up. And it's like only been like a month or so that these three have like properly known each other. So on the one hand, it makes sense, but at the other hand, as a storyteller, I'm going to try and encourage the group to, to help each other out a bit more. And I know my players are going to watch this. This isn't me telling you lot off. I think the way that you're acting is and interacting and role playing all these different things makes perfect sense, and I love all of these emotions and things, and I know that you all love them too. So this isn't a nag, this isn't me telling you off saying that you're doing the game when you're doing it perfectly. It's just venting my thoughts, as it were. Again, not telling you off, you're all amazing. Just ideas. And so what then happened with the Brujah player is that they've received 2 phone calls, like roughly at the same time, one after the other. The first call that they had, I can't quite remember the narrative of this, but it was the fact that they got the phone call from the Tzimisce player saying that they were needed now. They had to go to a police station to free a friend of theirs. And one of the things that they got told by Damien in that email was to stay away from the police, and, Brujah players already wanted to get themselves into trouble to support the Anarch cause. But then they also get a phone call from Crook saying that he reckons he's found somebody that resembles the sire's appearance. So that dynamic of picking a side came up very, very strong here. And, the Lasombra player tried to talk them through it. But keep that in mind, because Brujah player chose a secret third option. So also the Lasombra player also heard from one of their security that there was an incident outside, and I didn't make them do any rolls for it, but I had like the Lasombra player and whatnot, and the Brujah player work out, Malkavian player had a bit of a frenzy situation. No one was harmed, it was just a bit weird for the onlooker sort of thing. Then the phone call happened, and then the 2 characters made their way to Malkavian sire's apartment. The 2 of them would enter the apartment, and just like Malkavian player would have no idea what to do with all of this, because Malkavian player hasn't shared any of this with them, and also none of the players really invested any points in an occult, which is absolutely fine, but I think that's just kind of funny, given, especially the number of times I make them roll something with occult or something with politics. You would have thought that at some point they would have put a point into in any of them, but, metagaming out the window for a second. They're playing their characters spot on, and they're investing their points correctly as well. It's just something that I laugh about. Again, not telling you lot off or anything. I just think it's funny, especially with who I am and what I'm going to get you to do. But yeah, it makes perfect sense that you haven't done any of that, which is fine, and I love that, because Brujah player was able to offer them the assistance of Portia, the one Tremere contact that they know, who was able to come and give them a hand. But before they did that, Brujah player gave them the contact, and then Brujah player decided to bugger off and do some things. And again, keep that in mind, we're going to come back to that, because Portia then arrived, all very, well, it was Portia, kind of seductive-like, and was able to help out the Malkavian player with the situation, was able to cast this ritual and talk a little bit about it, which I was, by the way, was totally running on the seat of my pants with this, because I was just making this shit up as I was going along, because I did not expect any of this to be happening in session. But Lore, you've just mentioned that you were expecting the blood bond thing to be a really significant part of the character's development. Why didn't you expect this to happen all at once? I don't know, to be honest. I kind of expected the Malkavian player to keep a lot of this bottled up and not react the way that they did. It doesn't make much sense, but you know what? Brains don't make a lot of sense sometimes, so it's just fun, you know, making shit up. And I knew that some ritual, whatever, was going to be involved with all of this, trademarked. So, you know, it was just nice just bullshitting my way through this. So what happened was that Portia described this as one of the many rituals conjured up by an individual called Nikolai, which interestingly nobody questioned, that allowed anybody who's conjured it, or to partake in it, to see what they truly desired, which made sense here given what what the Malkavian player was here to do. So with some esoteric bollocks, Portia aided in the Malkavian player conjure up this ritual, you know, enjoying it way too much. And they sort of like describe the scene like a dreamscape sort of thing, like they sort of plummeted within the ground, like they had to go towards a light and it opened up, and they sort of saw a museum with like a weathered box and a glass box at a museum, and they knew exactly where it was because it was the museum I kind of wanted them to go anyway. They sort of come through, and then they fuck off. The Lasombra player, all the while, is sort of watching this and described how this sort of like rune thing's like illuminating like a soft warm glow that's I described as like sort of the warmness of a salt lamp. You're not like it wouldn't cause like a frenzy or anything because it's kind of like a fiery hue, but it's not like, it wasn't fire, it was just like a light. And this is kind of the most I've done with like Tremere bollocks so far, and it was kind of fun to do that because I really enjoy the Tremere, and how I'm portraying Portia, the character of them, is growing on me more. So that's all just been lots of fun, and you know, just seeing the players interact with all of this and like learning through like these unknown arcane elements, you know, of the Tremere this way. It's been an interesting little ride, and of course, in response to all of this, the Malkavian player will offer the Portia Tremere a boon, and Portia also acknowledged that the Lasombra was a business rival, which is kind of made the Lasombra player wary, as they should be. This is, after all, the world of darkness. So we are going to now whiz back over to the Brujah player, who, as I said, were given a choice. They should either go and visit Crook, or at least the location that Crook gave them, or go and support the Anarchs. Brujah player did both, but what they did first, this is a blunder on my part, because I was expecting to do one or the other, because, well, if Crook had, like, the address readily available, they wouldn't need much to do with the Anarchs anymore, right? But, of course, they would technically have time to do both, and there would be nothing stopping Brujah player from physically, geographically doing both. But here we are. But that, you know what, that's fine. It actually provided a lot more drama this way, and I absolutely love that. So they went to this location, and there they were. The sire in the cold undead flesh, which led to a very emotional interaction between the two of them, as the Brujah player in their van had a bit of a heart-to-heart with their sire, trying to find out, like, why was I made, why was I created, sort of thing. And I do have my answers to that. I've talked about them in some spoiler sessions, I believe. I will touch upon them later on, if I remember to. But unlike the other two sires of this game, this one appears not to be an arsehole. Like, they did it with their best interest in heart. Like, if I didn't leave, we both would have died, sort of thing. What I did was, like, truly horrible, and I hope to get your forgiveness sometime, etc. and so forth. And the players talked about it after the session. It was like, it was a genuinely sweet moment. Seems like, oh, you're a genuinely good person, you weren't trying to be horrible, just did it really badly, sort of things. Like, yeah, it was just nice seeing that bit of contrast there, because having 3 awful sires would, for the first bit, would have been a bit predictable. And as I've said with like previous spoiler sections, I do have my reasons for this Brujah's, why they like embraced their character and fucked off. And the player said that they wanted like something going on between the sire and Jackson, that there is a reason why all of this was allowed to unfold, and I was allowed to come up with the bits in between. And I'm sure that's going to come into fruition at some point, probably very shortly after what's going to happen next. But, you know, it was just nice to see that interaction, that heart-to-heart. And then there was the revelation that this Anarch Tzimisce, Anarch, isn't an Anarch, because Brujah player Sire does not know this Cassidy. They do not know any Tzimisce. They only met one Tzimisce in their lifetime, and they were a complete and utter monster. And they were aware partially of the individual that was stalking the Brujah player, and how the Tzimisce character is probably very likely connected between them, and that got the sire pretty worked up and trying to control their anger a bit, because obviously the Brujah are known for their heated passion, shall we say. So they kept like smacking on like the glove compartment of the thing, like trying to rein it in, sort of thing. Brujah player learned that the sire had learned something that they weren't supposed to know, but not the greater details, as I hinted at before. And yeah, it just got a bit tense. And then the session kind of ended with the Malkavian... I can't remember who phoned who, but there was a phone conversation that involved the Brujah player heading to the museum to aid in the Malkavian player in Lasombra, as they were both heading to the museum to try and locate the Malkavian player's sire, with Brujah sires in tow. There we go, I can English. So yeah, that kind of is a very quick, kind of rushed recap of that session, but as I said, it was like a week or two ago since I did it. My memory's a bit hazy, and I'm referring to notes I made on a channel on a Discord server that I made for the group. But as I said, a lot of emotional drama and spice, and like I had a bit of an extended chat in the end just to make sure that everybody was okay, but everybody seems to be really enjoying it and just liking the different dramas and dynamics of everything. Players mentioned, like, talked to me privately about some things, particularly Lasombra player, with some of their ideas and thoughts. Was kind of an extension about like who was stalking them, maybe some stuff with Portia. They were talking about, well, maybe they can get, Portia to like help them out with a club or whatever, like some thaumaturgical wards or whatever. It was just really cool, just seeing how much they were vibing with this, and also knowing that I wasn't pushing things too hard, and I was creating the emotions that I was wanting to create. And it's just lots of fun just seeing my players just have such warm emotions to all of this, and they get, like, every week, like, there's always a message saying how excited they are to play again, which is fantastic, and and also I'm enjoying it as well. And whilst I don't have the connection to it that they do, because at the end of the day I consider it to be their story, I am literally just throwing random shit at them based on what they're doing and what they want, what they've provided me. So technically it's not random shit, but I'm not really planning much. I'm not really having much connection with any of these characters, because a golden rule with games mastering, I feel, is that if you're not prepared for a character to die, do not introduce it. So, and also at the end of the day, if you're using something like Chicago by Night or any like module, like what happens in your games, it's not considered canon. It's your canon, but it's not like the grander canon and meta plot. But at the end of the day, I don't really have much of a connection with these characters. The only connections I have on a personal and emotional level, I have with my players, and just making sure that they're having lots of fun, and I'm just hitting all the right notes and things. And to that end, I think we should move on to the spoiler section. So if you're one of my players, respectfully, fuck off. And anybody who doesn't want to have any spoilers for the next session, just wants to go in completely blind, you can piss off now as well. But before you do, check out the various things in the description below to purchase, which will financially support the channel. You do that with the affiliate links that are provided there. I get some of the money back, which allows me to do more lore dives. It's the sort of content that I'm used to doing and the stuff that you all enjoy very much. I will mention that I'm slowly building a cyberpunk library at the moment, which I've been posting about recently, at least recent as of the 20th of March 2024 in the year of our Lord Talos, which I've actually started to move up there. And people seem to be enjoying the posts that I'm doing about that and just getting excited about that. I do actually have some cyberpunk content in the works, or it may even be out by the time that this recap campaign diary is. But regardless of when it comes out, I'll put it in a card. I think it's going to pop up there. Is it going to be in one of the corners, regardless to which one I point out? I'm pretty sure actually it's this corner here. But regardless, check out the cards, check out the descriptions below, and I'll see you in the next upload, whatever that may be. And for everybody else who's sticking around, let's carry on with the spoilers. So I suppose I should start by talking what's going to be immediately happening first as the 3 coterie members and Sire arrive at this museum. One of many museums in Chicago, I have to add. There's going to be a bit of tension because the players know a little bit about the Sire, while the Malkavian and Lasombra characters know a bit about the Brujah side, so there's going to, try and gain a bit of trust and see if they can truly be trusted or not. And Brujah side's intentions are going to be pure and true. They want to help out, they want to support Brujah however they can. They're going to help however they can, as I said, but they're going to be a bit more reserved. And depending on what happens in this session and what's going to be discussed, I feel it's going to be the Brujah's side that's going to introduce the idea, you lot need to start working together. Don't end up like me and get yourself, into all sorts of troubles thinking you do everything by yourself sort of thing. And I'll probably have that as an organic-ish way to introduce that one, at the very least, as being a Chronicle tenant. And we'll see how that sticks, and we can have a little chat outside of the game to see how that resonates with them. So, they arrive at the museum and they're finding that the place is a fucking tip. Night security watch guards, whatever, have been their throats have been slashed out. But there's also going to be a conflict. They're going to have some of their throats slashed out, but there are also going to be some that are more brutal than others, which if the players do a particular search for it, they're going to work out these are 2 different methods here. One is very clear, violent feeding slash at the throat sort of thing, and the other one has just been beating the shit out of for no good reason. Because when they arrive there, they'll find that this box has been smashed into and whatever's there has been taken out. But I'm assuming that the players are going to think, oh no, that's where the Sire was, oh no, blah blah blah, stuff like that. But they're going to see a Sabbat pack there, because we're introducing the Sabbat here and it makes sense, to provide the Sabbat here. But it's going to be in a much more violent scale. I can't remember if I've mentioned this, but the idea that I had, I think I have, but an idea that I've had for this is having the main antagonist Sabbat that the players are going to encounter are mirrored to the players in some degree. You have, there's going to be a Malkavian, childlike individual who has a thing with stars as a bit of a Fruit Loop, for lack of a better phrase. You've got the meant-to-be side of the Brujah player, who is the Lasombra, who, unlike our Lasombra player, is a bit of a wild cannon. And then, unlike the Brujah player, there's going to be a Brujah who is an absolute violent murder fucker dickhead. Whatever that may be, roided out sort of monster. Bald, scars, just really getting off the presence you should not take this person head on. He will absolutely annihilate you. And there's probably going to be some sort of violent encounter straight away to get that message across. And I already have names for them. The Malkavian's going to be called Anthrax. I've always loved that word. I do not know why. Probably says a lot about me as an individual, but there you go. Then again, my favourite word is pandemonium, so that also says quite a bit. We know the name of the Lasombra sire. I think I've mentioned before, an Eduardo who goes by the name of Inks with an X. And the Brujah Sabbat is going to be called Splat. Splat Bratovich. Splat, I feel, as a name is going to frighten them the most. It's why are you called Splat? Because I'm going to splat your fucking brains into the ground, sort of thing. He has negative points of humanity. Then again, Sabbat, Path of Enlightenment, but you get the general idea. V5 doesn't do paths. Well, it does, but it doesn't. Anyway, so there's going to be this encounter at the museum with this Brujah anti-tribu, and some other Sabbat, which are basically going to be false Sabbat. They have just been embraced into the Sabbat. They've got no idea. They don't know the difference between their Sabbat arse and elbow. They've got these guns and rifles and they're scared shitless, like they don't know what to do, why they're here. But the reason why that they're here is that they're collecting a completely separate artifact. And the presence of the Malkavian sire has completely fucked everything up. This artifact, relic, whatever, relic being a key word here, is for the Black Spiral Dancers, but they can't touch it because they're all going to be wearing gloves. It's going to be in a case with like fiends, and they touch it, it's going to take permanent points of willpower off because it was designed specifically for the Black Spiral Dancers. This isn't like an actual canon thing. This is just something I'm just going to throw at the players just to fuck with them, because I know it's going to be like it's going to be a weapon of some sort, and they're going to instinctively go to grab it and like throw it or whatever, and that's just going to do more damage to them than it will do anybody else. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what rolls they're going to make and what they observe. And obviously, Lasombra player may observe that this like spearhead or spear proper is going to have like these runes similar to the gun, perhaps to remind them, oh yeah, shit, there's that stuff from earlier on. They may make the connection here that, hold on, with these werewolves connected here, the same one that was at my club sort of thing, you know, just because if they had nothing else more to worry about, let's just add that more. That's probably going to take up a huge chunk of the session. I don't feel that it's going to be appropriate to have Malkavian side there. She's going to be long fucking gone. Because it's already been established she is already quite a potent individual, purely because of the connections with this Diablerie Golconda cult, and just how I've introduced elements of her character already. My players are terrified of that sire, and you know, for the one individual just to basically survive this encounter with a group of four Sabbat, it's just going to create the impression that, oh yeah, we really don't want to get on their bad side. And there's probably going to be a conversation afterwards regarding the Brujah sire, like who are you, what you want, like what's this piece of information? The information, of course, being that she found out the Brujah sire is she, Evie, Evie, that's the name, Evie. She found out that Lodin didn't die in the attack of Lupine in the War Chicago, but survived, which isn't something that I'm throwing in there. That's something that Chicago by Night 5th edition has in there, character sheet and all. And I don't know what the players would do with that bit of information, but if they challenge Jackson with that, Kevin Jackson with that, that's going to create a whole load of interesting spice. You know, but I'll make it very clear, like, if anybody finds out that you know this, you're dead. So we'll see what happens. And of course, there's also the stuff in the previous session. There's the encounter with Gabriella, and I've had a little revision in my head. It's not going to be so much the case of you know, interacting with Horatio, with the Lasombra player. It's going to be more the case of, because something that came up in the previous session is that their car was damaged because of like the car chase as they were going to the police session, and there was a big old dent. They talked about that in the last session, but the chase itself happened in the session before. And they had their ghoul, Alex, like take that off to be repaired. That's when they're going to find out they actually don't have the funds to do that. So when they come back to their club, not only are they not going to have enough money to pay for the rental, but they're not going to have enough money to pay for the repairs. And that's going to encourage the Lasombra player to actually, you know, get that shit sorted out. There's probably going to be the conversation regarding, you know, the Lupine proper, as I said a moment ago. And there's also going to be the stuff with the Midnight Circus, and we're going to have to see how the players interact with all of that to see how quickly I move through all of that. And one final thing, which I hadn't mentioned, the Lasombra player had messaged me privately saying that on Halloween, because if you remember, this is all happening in modern times. I'm like shuffling with the timelines of the V5 canon a bit. We started playing this in the autumn, and like a month had passed when it became a bit more freeing. And on Halloween, the players, so the Lasombra player wanted to go and visit another one of their touchstones, because it would be their birthday. It's either their birthday or their character's birthday or whatever. It's like kind of an emotional, sentimental thing, which is nice. And that will be happening on the following night. And they're going to be stalked. They're going to be having people watching them. And I want the Lasombra thing to think it's the SI. I want them to think that this black light that I mentioned, this Project Blacklight, are focusing solely on them. It's not. It's part of my plans with regarding the Hecata. And I'm also aware that the Malkavian player has a bit of a ghost problem now, because the person that was killed in the previous, not the previous session, but the one before that, part of the relationship maps, they want to try and get hold of Harry Milliner. And, you know, I wanted to make him seem like the nicest guy in the world. Like, he's young, he doesn't have much to do with the family, whatever, he's here for personal business. He's going to try and help them, you know, get rid of this ghost problem, so on and so forth. So when it does drop that in actual fact it was the Hecata that was fucking about with the Lasombra's plans, that's going to be like a real jaw drop moment for everybody involved. And I have to time this quite well, because I want some like natural rapport and emotion to be built between Lasombra player and their other touchstone. And just when things are about to get on track, they're gonna get kidnapped, and all of this is going to unfold. And depending how badly things go, I might just burn down the club as well, or at least attempt to, or rob them from the club, you know. But it's going to be during the day, which will scare the shit out of them, for sure. But that's probably going to be some time down the road, as with everything else that I've planned with the Black Spiral Dancers, the encounter with the Guru, which reminds me, the thing that I had planned regarding the Malkavians' Terror Frenzy is that it was going to be taking notice of some kinfolk, or Guru, who are going to approach the players this way. They'll quickly make the connections. Oh, this is the third vampire, leech, whatever, that's pissed us off. Like, sort of thing. And the third, who was the other one? And they described Genghis, and they realised it was werewolves that killed Genghis. And that's going to create lots more drama. So that's all going to be lots of fun, and I can't wait for my place to explore all of that. Which kind of leads me to the end of this campaign diary, this emotional damaging session. So if you like what you hear and see, don't forget to like and subscribe. Please don't lick the subscribe button. Please don't lick your monitors. And if you do, don't tell me about it either. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment telling me that you like the content. Don't leave a comment saying that, oh, you're helping out with the algorithm because YouTube doesn't like that. Just tell me that you like the content, that you want to see more, because these aren't doing very well, but I know that people like them all the same. I enjoy doing them, so I'm going to keep doing them anyway. Just tell me what you like, subscribe, check out the various books and things in the description below and help support the channel. And follow me on Blue Sky and Instagram, which you'll find in the links in the description below. Join the Lore by Night Discord server, and I'll see you in the next upload, whenever that may be. And until next time, farewell.